Drip Edge Blackline Super Reverb. Drip Edge Blackline Super Reverb. Check that out. Pretty cool to have two of those side by side. The one on the right is my personal amp you guys have seen on the channel, and this one is a customer's that was just brought in, said to be possibly all original inside. So yeah, let's open it up and see what we got. Right on, so we got this thing all out of the cabinet. First things first, 2-prong, so this will definitely have to be replaced. Gotta love that little protective shield there, so that's gone. Let's check out some of the tubes real quick. This rectifier tube is quite large, so definitely not a GZ34. 5U4 it looks like, maybe? Which is really not the right tube for this amp, so we'll probably recommend swapping that with the GZ34 as Fender intended. And then these, probably the original 6L6s, I would guess. Those with more experience with tubes will be able to say for certain. We have a matched pair here. We do. And we'll skip past these for a second. Let's get to the good stuff first. Let's go straight to the transformers. So we can see 606.806 is what that looks like to me. So that would date this as 1968, the 6th week, so very early. Now this is a Blackline Drip Edge, just like my personal Super Reverb, which typically denotes that it's a very early 68 to very late 67 amp. So that makes sense. 606.811, so again, early 1968. And then the output transformer, 606.727. Yeah, so this is a 1967, mid 1967 output transformer, and the rest are early 68. So that completely lines up with what you would expect with this amp. So everything's looking good so far. Let's go over to the Doghouse real quick. Actually, before we open that, I wanted to show the cool letter that came with the amp. And the new owner that purchased it, he was given this letter. It looks like they call it 1969, but it does appear to be a very early 68. And it's got kind of a funny note on it where he says they had van packed at a gig. Everything was stolen from the van except for the Super Reverb. It was too heavy. So there you go. That makes total sense to me. I don't know how anybody would be able to run away with a Super Reverb. They are quite beefy. Zoom out here. Let's go ahead and undo this and see what we got hiding inside. Okay, all original. So the date codes on these. My daughter's losing it in the background. Sorry if you can hear that. Looks like 1967, I believe. That's how you would read that. So these are kind of mid to late 67 caps. So again, everything lines up as you'd expect. In fact, you can see right here, 67. So yeah, this is kind of exactly what you want to see. So very, very cool for the owner. And yeah, no solder joints look touched from here. So all original, fantastic. Let's confirm there's no voltage in it before moving on. It's like a hodgepodge of stuff here. Old RCA, that might be original. See if this one has the hybrid black and brown preamp sockets that these kind of sometimes have. Very tight tube sockets, wow. Brand new groove tube it looks like. Made in West Germany, ECC 81. Amperex, made in Holland. The owner mentioned that it kind of has a lightning storm sound. So, wow, these tube sockets are so tight. Sylvania, pretty good collection of tubes, although kind of the lowest quality tube so far is in the Primo position, V2. Realistic Lifetime. I can't say I've ever seen that before. This is Britain. And a 12 AT7. So yeah, hodgepodge of stuff. Definitely would replace this one with a different tube or just rearrange the order if the owner uses the vibrato channel, which he probably will. So yeah, but one of the tubes is most likely bad anyways, based off of his description of hearing kind of this lightning storm sound. So perfect, we can continue on. All right, let's see what we got on this side. Looks good at first glance. Looks untouched, to be honest. See if you guys can see that okay. Lighten it up a little bit. So we got original bias cap, original cathode bias caps here. I don't see any solder joint that's been touched. Original resistor for the bias supply. Looks like the original screen and grid stop resistors. Yeah, this thing looks completely untouched. Amazing. Man, it's so cool getting these amps in. I've been getting a lot of really clean, in some cases completely original amps in. This is awesome. Wow, what a cool example. So fantastic. I'm sure the owner will be very pleased to hear that it is confirmed. This is basically all original, apart from the tubes. And yeah, looks super, super good. So next steps, I'm going to go through, measure every single resistor in the amp, make sure there's nothing super out of tolerance, but I'm sure they're mostly fine, and we'll keep any of the ones that are borderline for sure. Anything that's in a very critical spot, like the bias supply, we'll probably have to change, but the rest we'll hear it first and confirm it's okay, but I'm sure they're fine. And all of these caps here, cathode bypass caps, those will need to be replaced. The caps in the Doghouse will need to be replaced, and then possibly a tube. For sure, this resistor right here, these are they basically can never bias with modern wall voltages with that stock resistor. And then possibly, most likely, the screen and grid stop resistors, we'll have to measure those, but those tend to be bad because they get cooked. So yeah, but otherwise, I mean, super, super clean, beautiful example of a 1968 Fender Super Reverb. So awesome. Let me get to work and we'll come back with the next steps. Alrighty, let's go through our findings. Overall, obviously the amp is super duper clean, so it does not need a ton of work, which is great. There are a few items that we'll go through that I'm definitely going to recommend to the owner we do. He expressed wanting to keep it as all original as possible, which I totally understand. So we'll keep that in mind. But I went through and checked every single resistor value, and if you guys can see that. And anything in yellow is basically needs to be replaced, or I'm recommending be replaced. Anything in green, I'm okay with leaving in there at least until you start playing it. So basically, just start on this side. The resistor is basically all tested within 20% or so of the tolerance for the most part. So those are fine. We'll keep all of those. The cathode bypass caps. So this era, they do not have the, this is a transition era, right? So they don't have the cardboard dual caps. Instead, they have these kind of really interesting skinny looking guys, which is kind of amazing that yeah, I don't know, it's just kind of amazing the varying sizes and different caps they use. This is kind of a fun era to look at. But it does have all blue moldeds, which is great to see because sometimes they don't. They have a mixture of stuff. So the owner scored on that. So yeah, all of the cathode bypass caps, like we said, will be replaced. Moving on down, really the only resistors that were a good amount off would be this 470 ohm, and then the 182K plate resistors here in this V. These measured 130 and like 125 or something. So those are a good amount off, and these should be 5% tolerance, as you can see there. So those should be replaced. Same with the 220Ks. They measured in the 260K range. So I would recommend replacing those. Moving on here, like we mentioned, the 27K, this won't bias with proper modern wall voltages, so that'll need to be replaced. The cap here, obviously replaced. The diode, the resistor back there measured quite high as well, and when we're in there, might as well replace the diode. So that whole board will get redone. The screen and grid resistors here, they all four need to be replaced. They all measure quite a bit out of tolerance. Super common. And then the last thing to really note here, apart from all the caps in the Doghouse, obviously, is this. Once again, we have another example where a vintage Fender coming in with, transformer bolt mounted grounds. And look at this. This one's solid. Can't move this one. Look at this. Completely loose. Every time. There's always one that's loose. In fact, this one might be loose too. This one's got a little bit of play to it. But yeah, totally loose. I can just move that with my finger, which is bad. So I'm definitely going to recommend we solder directly to the chassis on these just to ensure that's never a problem, and it's basically restoring it to the blackface spec because that's what they did prior to this transition era. So everything else looks really good though, and yeah, the owner scored. This is awesome. He's got all of the caps you want to see, got all of the original ceramics in here. This thing looks pretty sweet, so I'm sure he'll be very excited to hear that. So I'll go ahead and contact the owner and we'll follow up with next steps. Alrighty, so we spoke to the owner and went through everything we found with the amplifier, and basically he wants to keep it as all original as possible. So totally fine, as long as he kind of understands what that means. I went through all of it with him. That is his call to make it as his amplifier, and that's totally fine, and I get it because when you have an amp like this that's never been worked on, you want to keep it all original or as original as possible. He's also not a gigging musician. This is, it needs to work, but it's not going to have hard life out on the road. So I totally get it. So with that in mind, we're going to start here with the caps. These obviously will need to be replaced. They're spewing their guts. I'll see if you guys can see it here. Hopefully you can see that. Let me focus it. So right there, you can see they're starting to bubble and burst out, which is a surefire sign of them needing to be replaced. Completely normal. These caps are, over 60 years old, so that needs to happen. We will try and stuff the caps per the owner's request, so we'll give that a shot. He wants to go with F&T caps as well. I know the 20 microfarads will fit here fine. I'm not sure if the 80 microfarads I have will fit in this shell. We will find out. And then the resistors tested okay, so we can keep those. So we'll start here, and then we'll get to all this stuff on the other side, but we're going to kind of basically do as little as possible in general. And I'm also going to cut this 2-prong since this is, this is for sure getting replaced. This is one of those non-negotiable pieces for me. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've shown this process many times in many different videos, so we'll kind of speed through this. But yeah, we're just going to go ahead and clip out all of the old caps. And then I will show probably stuffing one of them, and then we'll just speed through the rest. So let's get to it. So I'll use like a dental pick like this, or a tool like this, which is just kind of a sharp end on it. And essentially, I just want to get under the lip. Now it can be a little tricky, and you can use a flathead too. And I just kind of play around with the various tools I have on hand until I find something that works perfect. Each one's a bit different. So you can see this. Yeah, you can see it. Just kind of just lifting it up. And I can kind of just, I'm kind of putting it in and tilting it like that, just to kind of get up and under. It's a bit tricky, and obviously you're dealing with paper that's from 60 years ago, 60 plus years ago. So it's very fragile, so it's not easy to do this and it'd be perfect. You have to, go into it with that in mind. I know some people, they'll actually just cut it to kind of retain the sides, and then you don't really see the bottom cut. But I kind of prefer this method. Okay, so now that we've got the lip like that, we should be able to just push the cap through, just like that. Beautiful. So again, make sure you got the orientation correct, positive, negative, and we can put that old cap to the side. Let's go ahead and grab one of our new F&Ts to kind of see the size difference. Now, you can do this a number of different ways, right? You could just literally put this in and not put anything on the sides and just kind of let it sitting there. So from the top, it looks original like this. And I do see some people do that. You can do that. It's a kind of the easy way, I guess. But I prefer to make it look a little bit. If we're going to do this and make it, look semi-original, you might as well be a little crazy about it. So it is, extra work to do this for sure. It's not as simple as just doing a normal recap job, but some people really want it, and that's totally fine. I'm happy to offer it as a service for those that really want that. So what we'll do is we're going to grab some foam. Let me grab that real quick. So I've got this foam here, and I've already shown in previous videos this is non-conductive and super sturdy foam, and I've used this in a number of different amps with no issues whatsoever. So basically what we're going to do is cut out little, you can almost think of it as like wheels on the end of an axle. So you'll have kind of a donut here and a donut here, so that it's floating perfectly in the center of the cap, like, or the shell like that. And then the leads will poke through the foam, and that'll be kind of the way to support it. So then you got the ends covered, the cap is kind of floating in there. So that's how I like to do it. There's a number of different ways you can do it, but that's how I like to do it. So we'll go ahead and get that cut out for you real quick, and then we'll show what that looks like once we're done. And the nice thing about this too is you don't have to be, you know, machine perfect. Like I know some people do a wooden dowel or something. Again, this is malleable and it'll shape to what it's in, right? So if I put this in here, even as is in this kind of funky looking, not quite square, it'll still fit, right? And you can still get it to look fine. So bam. See that? That looks totally fine, even though it's not the right, you know, shape or anything. So yeah, I still like to help it and get it a bit closer, but you don't have to be super crazy about it. All right, so now we got that more or less set. We can go ahead and just recrimp this over. All right, there you go. So we've got it stuffed both sides. And that's what it'll look like. So we'll be doing that for the remaining, what is it, 4 more caps. But before we do that, I want to make sure that the bigger F&Ts will fit in here in this. So let's go ahead and lift this one up real quick. Oh, wow. Look at that, like a glove. So do we even need to add foam on these? I mean, a very thin layer of foam if we do. I think we only need to add it on one side because this is totally fine. So we'll just add it on this side, I guess. So it's not moving around. Cool, well, I'm glad those fit. So now that we've confirmed that, I'm gonna put all this off to the side and we're gonna prep the board. So we're gonna work on getting all this done, everything removed and it ready to go for adding in the new parts. So we'll remove all of these leads and desolder all of the eyelets, get them all clean, ready to go, so then we can add in the new caps. So we'll just time lapse through this because this is a bit of a tedious job here. And we'll come back in like an hour or so. All right, and just like that, we are all done with these stuffed caps. So from your vantage point, you're looking at it right now, you really shouldn't be able to tell we did any work to the amplifier, which was the goal, of course. And then when you tilt it off to the side, it'll be, you know, very clear that the caps have been stuffed. So, you know, it's been done well, but we're not trying to fool anybody. So there's that. And then, of course, the obligatory note inside the Doghouse I always leave. So just notating for the next tech down the line when it was recapped, what they were stuffed with, and then, of course, pointing the YouTube channel in case they want to see the work done. So, yeah, really pleased with how this came out. Now we can go ahead and move on. One quick note, I was just about to put the Doghouse cover away, and I noticed this. Those are pieces of original leads that were stuck to the adhesive they used to put this strip on. That was not for me. That and this amp's never been touched before, so kind of cool. From the factory, you got little pieces of, I don't know, resistor, wire, cap stuck in the glue. So anyways, moving on. So next up, we've got a few things to replace in here. Not everything I pointed out before will be replaced, so we will be a bit more specific just based off of the owner's request. We will be, for example, leaving the screen and grid stop resistors here for now. We'll, you know, turn the amp on, make sure it's sounding okay, not having any problems, but he would rather leave those if possible, partially because I just don't have replacements for equivalent replacements for these with, you know, new old stock 1-watt Allen Bradleys. Other things he wants to keep, so we'll keep this here. We're just going to tighten it instead of soldering to the chassis directly like I would normally do. So just kind of minor stuff overall. Let's go ahead and start with the bias supply and just get that knocked out. You guys won't really be able to see anything, but it's pretty straightforward. Just like before, we'll go ahead and clip the cap, partially because I know the lead is being used right now for the ground connection here. So in place of the stock 50 microfarad 50 volt, we'll toss in a mod 50 microfarad 100 volt. You can see it's quite a bit smaller. The nature of the beast with modern components, they're significantly smaller. Awesome. There you go. So nice and stuffed. Perfect. So you guys probably couldn't see much there, but we got the cap stuffed. Looks just like it did before. We left the diode and the resistor per the owner, and we can continue on. So next up, we'll go ahead and replace this resistor right here, these 4 resistors here, and then these 4 electrolytic caps. So let's get to it. All right, so we've got the vintage 15K resistor on there. I think I measured 16K. And then obviously this is a 10K pot, I believe. So right now we've got it set around 23K. The previous resistor, which would kind of define the minimum value for that you could get, was 27K. Actually measured higher than that. So basically this just allows us to have a better bias range. So 23K I think should get us pretty close to what we want for the bias, but obviously we'll adjust that once we're there. But for now, that looks good and we can continue on. I think next up, we'll go ahead and move forward with kind of the hardest part left, which is replacing all of these electrolytic caps. So we're just going to start pulling these out and swapping them with new mod caps. Pull all of those out, replace those, probably just do a quick time lapse because that's going to take a good amount of time. And then we'll circle back to these 4 resistors, and I think we'll call it a night from there. Oh, wow, look at this. I don't know if you can see. Let me zoom in. This resistor from the factory was snipped too short, and so they had it just sitting on top. Wow, that's crazy. I've never seen that from the factory before. So this is what, 100 ohm. Let me see if I have any replacements, because I don't trust that at all. Even though it lasted this long, that's just asking for a problem there. So let me see what I got. You know what? We might actually be able to make this original resistor work if I just reposition it and rebend the leads. So let's give that a try first. Okay, I feel okay about that. As long as it's actually in the eyelet bent over, then I'm fine with it. Continue on with the regular scheduled program here. Fantastic. Really, really pleased with the work we were able to get done tonight. So all of the cathode bypass caps have been swapped. We got the bias cap swapped, all of the Doghouse caps swapped. So basically, not basically, all of the electrolytics have been swapped in the amplifier now, which is fantastic. So what's remaining are the 2-plate load resistors right here for the phase inverter, these 2 bias leak resistors here, and then the 3-prong, and that's kind of what I would consider the bare minimum for this amp after talking with the owner. And then, once we fire it up and everything, we might find some additional pieces, but that should start us in a very good place. So yeah, we will pick this up tomorrow, but we will end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to follow along with this series, go ahead and subscribe. In the description, I will have a playlist link for this amplifier. So if you're watching this in the future, all of the episodes of whatever we do to this amp will be linked there. So yeah, thumbs up if you liked it, comment below, and subscribe. Until next time, see you guys.